Child, people love that same tired line. Get off government assistance and work harder. But let me tell you something. Child, those very benefits came from the mess that this country created from the beginning. If we didn't have a few people at the top, hoarding all the wealth, manipulating wages, inflating housing, exploiting labor, there wouldn't even be a need for SNAP, Social Security, or Medicaid. Just a quick crash course. SNAP, the S stands for supplemental. It's meant to fill in the gap. You can't fill in the gap. The size of the damn Grand Canyon. $15 an hour, and you still can't afford rent, food, and health care. And child, a one-bedroom apartment that used to be $800 is now $1,600. And groceries went up 25% since the pandemic, while CEOs made record profits. So when ignorant folks ask, what do you do with your October benefits? Like people supposed to save their EBT card. Baby, how you stock up when you don't even have enough to begin with? Child, and let's be clear. The face that they show when they talk about welfare, government assistance, is black. Baby, they've been running that lie for decades. But we know the truth. The majority of people on SNAP, Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare, baby, they don't look like me and you. White folks are the biggest beneficiaries of every single one of these programs. So when you hear people saying they're taking our benefits, baby, who is they? Because it's been their community getting a lion's share of it all. Black and brown folks been getting the crumbs, while white America silently has been collecting the whole pie. So this isn't about laziness. It sounds good. It's about survival in a system that's been rigged since day one. And now white folks realizing the system don't love you either, baby. I don't know why we keep trying to humanize these monsters. And they keep showing us who they really are. Anyone who can smile while people can't eat. Anyone who cheers when people lose access to health care. Baby, that's not leadership. That's evil in a suit. So no, the math ain't mathing. Greed is. So black people, drink your water, stay rooted, real, and knowledgeable, and mind your black business. Happy Black History 365.
Every economic problem that we're facing in this country right now, student loan debt being just out of control, the government shutdown, SNAP benefits being cut, health insurance premiums about to go through the roof, your rent going up, your pay stagnating, groceries just being astronomical, is because reparations were never paid after the Civil War. Let me explain. After the Civil War, the Union, the North won and the South was defeated, but the South was never punished. The Confederacy lived on in the ideology of the people, of the white people of the South. Reparations were never paid to Black Americans. They were never really, truly given the opportunity to pick themselves up by their bootstraps, to rise up and become equal members of this country, equal citizens. They've been fighting for their equality since then. They've never actually truly achieved it. So when white people hear a promise from Donald Trump et al. That we're gonna run the country like a business, to them that sounds appealing. They're like, oh yeah, because you know what? I'm a business owner. I own this country because I'm white. When Black and brown people hear, well, we're gonna run the country, run the government like a business, they understand what that means because they've been dealing with it for centuries. White people think that they are on the side of the owners, the masters, but they're not. Most white people have more in common with the Black and brown people that they look down upon. They are closer to them in the economic tax bracket than they are to the white billionaires whose asses they kiss. But listen to them glazing billionaires, especially on this app. I make $50,000 a year, but I have more in common with Jeff Bezos than I do with George Floyd. Bullshit! The only reason the lie of let's run this country like a business appealed to you is because you thought you would benefit. And now here you are. Now here you are, understanding that when they say we're going to run this country like a business, that means they're going to profit off of your ass. That means that if you take $100,000 loan out to go to college, you will be in debt to the federal government until the day you fucking die. You borrowed 100 grand, prepare to repay 300 grand. Because they're running the government like a business now. And guess what? You're a customer, not an owner. The government exists to serve us, not to profit off of us. And we will continue to have these problems until y'all get your fucking minds right.
White men are most definitely under attack in this country, and that's not even an exaggeration. And what's also not hyperbolic to say is that if you can't acknowledge this simple fact in even the slightest degree, then you are my sworn enemy. Not only are character attacks on white men pervasive in social conversation, it can also be observed in things like entertainment and advertising. Because I can tell you right now, one surefire way to get me to not buy a product is if they feature interracial couples in their advertising, particularly if it's a non-white male with a white woman. Because the optical infringement upon white male breeding space is a psyop, and it's a psyop that's laughable at best. And though tactics like this generally fail in their objective to emasculate white men, it's the fact that they think that it can work that I find so deplorable. And though we're at a stage where these spiritual salvos are largely ineffective, they can be completely mitigated by us simply putting our foot down, and I think that's exactly what we need to do. Because I don't know about you, my brothers, but I've already made a commitment to do everything I can to ensure that my sons will not inherit a world where they are encouraged to forget who. The simple answer as to why woke liberalism is inherently evil is because it's in direct opposition to God, which is the focal point of evil's existence, is to oppose God through the systematic destruction of humanity. Basically, humanity is God's baby, evil hates God, therefore evil tries to kill baby, and in this case, sometimes quite literally. There are many facets of this that are quite fascinating. In particular is how your typical woke liberal will fool not so much other people, but fool themselves into thinking that what they advocate is morally sound and in the best interest of the posterity of America. And going back to the whole evil trying to destroy humanity thing, this is very observable within the woke movement. It's just that in their case, they tend to frame the destruction under the guise of reconstruction. And they do this in such a way that they trick themselves into thinking that their revolution is altruistic, when actually it's just another self-indulgence of a largely spiritually empty and godless people. Because whereas God knows how to fill empty spaces, evil tends to know how to take advantage of them. And that's exactly what you see with the woke movement. It's not the reconstruction that they actually crave, it's the destruction. Because how narcissistic and self-absorbed do you actually have to be born into a perfectly adequate system, only to convince yourself that it doesn't feel tailor-made for you, therefore it must be tailor-made for somebody else. And so you express this by contributing to its methodical demise. At this point, the only way that I can harbor any sort of respect for a black person is if they prove in some sort of way that they aren't completely obsessed with being black. I've been a grown-ass man for long enough to know that there's absolutely nothing a black person can teach me. I don't care to view history through your black lens. I don't care to be enlightened to your overly skewed, overly warped view of things like slavery, which is really just rooted in your need for an excuse. The whole Anthony Johnson this, transatlantic slave trade that. I don't see what any of that has to do with how you are now. The whole white people invented racism, it's just it's so below me, all right? Because when it comes to what we did invent, all right, we invented the railroad. We invented the internet. We're establishing the foundations of interplanetary travel. It's just white people, we have bigger fish to fry than to sit here and listen to how you think slavery is an adequate excuse as to why you can't be trusted with a self-checkout line. The only way that I can harbor any sort of respect for a black person is if they prove in some sort of way that they aren't completely obsessed with being black. I've been a grown-ass man for long enough to know that there's absolutely nothing a black person can teach me. I don't care to view history through your black lens.
Well, you heard it, everybody. The conservative white supremacist believes that we are obsessed with being black when we speak out against the mistreatment of black people. I have a feeling that he is not going to contradict himself at all.
I'm pretty thoroughly convinced that there's a special place in God's heart for white people, and there are times throughout history that make this abundantly clear. White men are most definitely under attack in this country, and that's not even an exaggeration. And this apparent notion that you're just like not allowed to make fun of black people in this country just always reminds me of, like, you know, when you're a kid, Sinners is an okay movie at best, all right? And the fact that it is such a subpar movie isn't what's most important. What's most
White supremacy in this country could not exist if it wasn't obsessed with black people. White supremacy also couldn't exist in this country if it wasn't obsessed with trying to prove that white people were inherently better. White supremacy and racism has convinced him that black people need to prove that we are worthy, that we are human, while at the same time that he's calling us obsessed, he does nothing but talk about black people and white people. But he's not obsessed because he's superior. We were raised in a society that was so obsessed with race that they had to create rules putting us at a disadvantage, only to tell us that we're the ones that are obsessed because we are fighting back against their obsession. Y'all have a good one.
The only way that I can harbor any sort of respect for a black person is if they prove in some sort of way that they aren't completely obsessed with being black. There's absolutely nothing a black person can teach me.
Speak about oppression, some white guy somewhere always gotta pop off like, well, what about white people? We're oppressed too. Man, miss me with that weak ass take. You ain't oppressed cause you're white. You might be struggling, sure. You might be broke. You might be in pain, but that ain't because you're white. That's cause this system beat the life out of poor folks, sick folks, working folks. White people just happen to fall into those groups too. That don't make whiteness a burden. It makes poverty the common enemy. And let's be real, if white skin was all it took to be oppressed, then explain why the average white household still holds over 6 times the wealth of the average black household in 2025. That gap hasn't shrunk in decades. It's still alive and well and fed by centuries of theft, redlining, slavery, and Jim Crow. You were born into a system rigged for you, and now that whole machine's breaking down, and you want to pretend you're starting at the same line? Nah. They'll throw one rich black celebrity or brown CEO in your face like, see, racism's over, but you can't cherry pick the top 0.01% and ignore the rest. One Oprah don't undo 400 years. The median black household wealth in 2025 is about $24,000. Latino households around $36,000. White households over $150,000. That ain't just a coincidence. That is generational theft. That's the game being rigged from day one. So if you're white and struggling, that ain't whiteness working against you. That's capitalism gutting the working class. Every shade of it. But you still ain't getting profiled in traffic. You still ain't getting schools defunded in your zip code just because you live there. You ain't burying family members from police bullets at the same damn rate. White folks don't carry that burden. You don't carry that fear. I'm not saying you ain't suffering. I'm saying don't lie about why. Don't confuse your paycheck with your pigment. You're broke because the rich treat labor like garbage, not because the world hates white people. That's not oppression, that's economic violence. And we all need to fight that together. But if you go around acting like your whiteness is a curse, like you're the real victim now, you're not just wrong, you're a part of the problem. James Baldwin said, as long as you think you're white, there's no hope for you. You want power? Link arms with the folks who've had a boot on their necks since before you were born. Quit crying for sympathy over your skin tone. That ain't never been the issue. You're not oppressed for being white. You're oppressed for being poor, disabled, overworked, underpaid, and disposable, just like the rest of us. And until you get that straight, you're fighting shadows while the real enemy keeps winning. So here's the deal. We rise together or we stay crushed alone. I don't care what color your skin is. If you're tired of getting bled dry by the rich, if you're done watching your people die poor while billionaires party, then stand up. Organize, fight like hell, not as white, black, brown, or anything else, but as the people, the workers, the ones they fear when we're united.
I think it's probably like 36% or something like that of white people on welfare to like 26% or 25% of black people. And there's nothing wrong with that. There ain't nothing wrong with that. But just get your facts straight. I know it's hard to believe and I know it's hard to receive, but it's y'all that are getting all the benefits. It's y'all that's on welfare. It's not the black folks. It's not the Hispanic folks. It's no other culture other than y'all. And again, that's okay. But accept that. It's okay. It's okay. Along with, you know what I'm saying, everything else that y'all have, y'all also have the most people on welfare. So sleep on that tonight. Oh, and I almost forgot. Love ya.
Can someone please explain to me why conservative white men feel they are under attack in the United States?
It's because when they make a dumb racist joke, people roll their eyes instead of laughing with them. It's because when they tell you there are some good ones, but people stare at them like they're being pieces of garbage. It's because when they look at what happens to brown children, they go, yeah, but they shouldn't have broken the law. It's because when they hear about people taking away food from kids in school, they go, there's no such thing as a free lunch. You should have to work for it. When someone gets a cancer treatment that is, poor because of Medicaid, they go, but my tax dollars. At the end of the day, it's because being terrible makes them and they're getting consequences for being terrible and More of the world than ever has opened their eyes to how terrible and just generally shitty conservative-minded men are. And they're not getting a free ride in a fancy car anymore. Society at large has looked at them and went, you know what? You're kind of the worst. I don't want to be around you. No liberal-minded person is going into conservative spaces and being like, what do you mean you won't tolerate me? We don't want to be there. But where do you find conservative men? Trying to date liberal-minded women, trying to be in liberal spaces, and they want to go out into the world and wear their like everybody that doesn't think like me is a fucking moron shirts, and then they're like, why are you so triggered, lib? At the end of the day, it's because, like I said, more people than ever know that they're trash, and they're treating them like they stink.
Let me tell you something, folks. Nobody on the mainstream media wants to say this out loud. The same people who spend decades calling black people lazy, calling us welfare greens, calling us dependent, calling us a burden in this country. Those same people are now on social media crying in tears because the EBT cards didn't work, because their healthcare insurance premium just doubled, because their rent is uncomfortable, and their groceries are astronomical. I want to be very, very careful with this. Let me tell you something nobody is talking on the mainstream media. The same people who spend decades calling black people lazy, calling us welfare greens, calling us dependent, calling us a burden in this country, those same people are now out there on social media crying because what? Their EBT cards didn't load, because their health insurance just doubled, because their rents are now uncomfortable. Can you believe that, guys? They are crying because their groceries prices just reached an astronomical level. I want to be very careful about this because I do not celebrate anybody suffering. Hunger is hunger. Poverty is poverty. It does not discriminate. But the truth is, the truth still needs to be told. Because here's what's happening in America right now. The SNAP benefits are being slashed. The health insurance premiums are skyrocketing. Wages are being frozen while CEOs are posting record profits. One of the bedroom apartments that costs almost $800 right now in the US is about $1,600. And grocery prices are only increasing by the day. And the people who are feeling it hard right now, many of them voted for this exactly. They were warned about this loudly, clearly, and repeatedly. Blacks and brown communities now stand, and the brown community stood at the microphone and said, this is what will happen. This is what will happen in 2026. This is what the government is running on. Like a business, actually looks like a business. And they ignored it. They mocked and called it decisive. Now here we are. I want to address this directly because it keeps coming up and it needs to stop. The lie is that black people, because it keeps coming up and it needs to stop. The lie is that black people are the face of welfare in America. This is a myth. This has been running for decades. Ronald Reagan built his political career on this. But let me tell you something. White Americans are the single largest demographic receiving SNAP, Medicaid, Social Security, and Medicare in America right now, not the blacks. The Hispanic people, the white Americans, by the numbers and by percentage, are the people, but the white Americans by numbers and by percentage. The data shows everything. But they are convenient pushing out this narrative. And here is the deeper truth. This is even more painful. This program, the Social Security program, the federal assistance, and the New Deal safety net were not even built for black people. When Franklin Roosevelt constructed these programs in the 1930s, he had this program in the 1930s. He had to out deals with racist Southern Democrats. But in order for him to pass this bill, the result, farm workers of America built a safety net. And they made it sure that the blacks couldn't get their hands on it. It wasn't until the 1960s, when the war on poverty, the blacks, the brown families finally got access. And what happened? Minutes they walked through the door, the narrative shifted. The image of welfare changed overnight, suddenly. It became a black problem in America. The laziness problem, the immoral failure. They opened the door, and the moment they walked in, they tried to burn the house down. So no, the math is not mathing.